Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Syafitri Ariani. My NPM is 192100015. Today I will answer my middle test about quantitative. And there are two information that I now relate to quantitative research method, namely experimental and non-experimental. Here there are three types of experimental design, including one, pre-experimental. Pre-experimental design is a design that includes only one group or class are given pre and post-test. This one group pre-test and post-test design was carried out on one group without a control or comparison group. Pre-experimental research or pre-experimental design are research design that have not been categorized as real experiment. This is because in the design, random sampling has not been carried out on. There is not sufficient control on confounding variable that can affect the dependent variable. And there are several types of pre-experimental research, including A. One should case study. The treatment is given to a group so that there is no control group as a comparison to the experimental group. The treatment is given and the results are then observed by carrying out a post-test. The treatment is the independent variable and the result is the dependent variable. B. One group is pre-test, post-test, previous. Researchers gave a retest to the group to be treated. Then the research did the treatment or treatment. After finishing the treatment, the research gave a post-test. The magnitude of the effect of the treatment can be known more accurately by comparing the result of the pre-test with the post-test. C. Intake group comparison. One group was studied, but the group was then divided into two. The first half of the group was called the experimental class because it received treatment, while the next half group was called the control class because it was not given any treatment. And the three pre-experimental design used different methods, but each design was given treatment. The difference in the use of the pre-test in the design. And two is quasi-experimental. Quasi-experimental design is a type of research design that has a control group and an experimental group that is not chosen randomly. And Suharsmi Arikonto defined experimental research is research that is intended to determine whether there is a result of treatment on the subject under investigation. The way to find out is to compare one or more experimental groups that were given treatment with a comparison group that was not given treatment. And Sugiono stressed that the main characteristic of the quasi-experimental design is the development of a true experimental design which has a control group but cannot function fully to control external variables that affect the implementation of the experiment. Quasi-experimental design is also a development of true experimental design, but this design tends to be difficult to implement. This design has a control group, but cannot fully function to control external variables that affect the implementation of the experiment or experiment. However, this design is better than the pre-experimental design. Quasi-experimental design is used because in practice it is difficult to obtain a control group that can be used for research. In an administrative or managed activity, it is often not possible to use some of the employees for experimentation and some of them not. Therefore, a quasi-experimental design was developed to overcome the difficulty in determining the control group in the study. There are two forms of quasi-experimental design, namely time series design and non-equivalent. According to Sugiono, there are two forms of quasi-experimental design, namely time design and non-equivalent control group design. In the following two forms of quasi-experimental design are present, namely time series design and non-equivalent. One time series design. In this design, the group used for the study cannot be selected randomly. Before being given treatment, the group was given a pretest up to 4 times with the aim of knowing the stability and clarity of the group condition before being given treatment. If the result of the race are 4 times, it turned out that the values are different, meant that the group is unstable, uncertain, and inconsistent. After the stability of the group condition can be clearly identified, then the treatment is given. This research design uses only one group, so it does not require a control group. 2. Non-equivalent control group design. This design is almost the same as the pre-test post-test control group design. Only in this design the experimental group and control group are not chosen randomly. Lastly is true experimental. True experimental because in this design the research can control all external variables that affect the course of the experimental, so that the internal validity, the quality of the implementation of the research design is high. In line with this, the purpose of true experimental according to Surya Bharata is to investigate the causal relationship by applying the treatment and comparing the result with the control group that was not treated. There are 3 criteria that need to be met in order to carry out true experimental research. 1. The existence of a control group. The sample of participants is subdivided into 2 groups, one that is subjective to the experimental and so undergoes change, and the other that does not. 2. The presence of an independent variable. Independent variable that influence the working of other variable must be there for the research to control and observe change. 3. Random assignment. Participants must be randomly distributed within the groups. And the 3 types of true experimental design are 1. Post-test only control group design. In this type of true experimental research, the control as well as the experimental group that has been formed using random allocation are not tested before applying the experiment methodology. This is so as to avoid affecting the quality of the study. The participants are always on the lookout to identify the purpose and criteria for assessment. Free tests convey to them the basis on which they are being judged, which can allow them to modify their end response, compromising the quality of the entire research process. However, this can hinder the ability of the research to establish a comparison between the pre-experiment and post-experiment condition, which is what actually weighs in on the change that have taken place over the course of the research. 2. Pre-test, post-test control group design. It is a modification of the post-test control group design with an additional test carried out before the implementation of the experimental methodology. This two-way testing method can help noticing significant change brought in the research group as a result of the experimental intervention. There is no guarantee that the result present the true picture as post-testing can be affected due to export of the response to the post-test. And last is 3. Solomon 4 group control design. 3 group consists of 2 control groups that are not subject to the experimental and change, and 2 experiment group that the experimental methodology applies to. Out of the 4 groups, 1 control and 1 experimental group is used for testing, while the 4 groups are subject to post-test. This way, research get to establish the pre-test, post-test context, while there remain another set of respondents that have not been exposed to pre-test and so provide genus post-test response, accounting for testing effect. And the second is non-experimental research design. There are also three, including survey, correlation, and ex post facto. And that's all, and that's I know. I think that's all. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.